Ilhan Omar is in full panic mode after a federal judge just ruled that the deportations she spent 9 months fighting can officially go forward.
On Friday afternoon, August 14th, a federal judge signed an order lifting a freeze. It was the exact freeze that Congresswoman Ilhan Omar had personally clamped onto the Trump administration back in March. With that one stroke of a pen, the last legal wall between the White House and the removal of Somali nationals was completely demolished. Within hours, the story tore through Minneapolis, home to the largest Somali community in America, and no politician alive had more writing on the outcome than the Congresswoman from Minnesota's 5th District. For 9 months, Ilhan Omar built her entire public identity around fighting this deportation effort. She called it racism, she called it revenge, she mobilized the media. But today, we are looking at the one number buried underneath this entire war that neither side's press machine ever said out loud. Once you hear this number, the entire fight reads completely differently, because Ilhan Omar didn't just lose this battle to Donald Trump, she lost it to the law, and she lost it to a math equation she hoped you would never check. To understand the scale of this defeat, we have to look at the identity at the center of it. This fight was always going to run through Ilhan Omar. She was born in Mogadishu. Her family fled the Somali civil war when she was 8 years old. They spent 4 years in a refugee camp in Kenya before finally landing in the United States in 1995. She became a citizen at 17. In 2019, she was sworn in as the first Somali American ever to serve in Congress. Her entire political brand is built on that spec. IFIC refugee to Congresswoman, and for the past 9 months, she has positioned herself as the loudest voice in Washington against Donald Trump's push to send Somali nationals back. That push started with a single social media post. On the night of Friday, November 21st, 2025, Trump announced on Truth Social that he was terminating Temporary Protected Status, or TPS, for Somalia. His words were blunt: send them back to where they came from. It's over. But the backdrop wasn't just rhetoric. It was grounded in a very real scandal. Federal prosecutors had spent 3 years unwinding Feeding Our Future, a $250 million pandemic fraud scheme run through Minnesota nonprofits. It was the largest COVID-era fraud case in America, with dozens of convictions already stacked up. Trump took that record, aimed it at Minnesota, and swung at one of the oldest protections on the books. Somali TPS dates back to 1991. The Biden administration had renewed it as recently as July 2024, citing ongoing armed conflict. But a midnight social post doesn't legally end a federal program. The formal kill came in January, when Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem announced the termination with a 3-word philosophy: temporary means temporary. The deadline was set for mid-March, but the street-level version arrived much faster. In the first days of December, ICE poured into the Twin Cities. They launched Operation Metro Surge, billed by DHS as a hunt for the worst of the worst. By December 12th, the agency claimed more than 400 arrests. By mid-January, that number hit 3,000. By the first week of February, DHS's own count ran past 4,000. One metro area, one winter. Whatever your political view, it was the largest immigration crackdown Minnesota has ever seen. And it ran while the TPS clock ticked down to 0. The lawyers did the only thing left. A group of Somali TPS holders sued in federal court in Boston. And on March 13th, just 4 days before the program was set to die, a judge froze the termination. That freeze held through the entire spring. The White House could do nothing but wait. But while the courtroom wall held, the fight outside it turned intensely personal. On December 12th, Omar led a group of House Democrats in a formal demand for answers from DHS. Her letter accused federal agents of racially profiling young men who looked Somali. She went further. She wrote that the entire surge was launched in direct response to Trump's racist comments about Somali people and as revenge against her personally. Then it hit her own home. Omar publicly stated that her own son had been pulled over by an ICE agent in Minnesota, claiming the profiling had reached her family. Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons fired back, stating the agency had absolutely zero record of any such stop. Omar's response? She called ICE a rogue agency and kept telling the story. By mid-January, the numbers war went nuclear. Noam posted that federal officers had arrested thousands of criminal illegal aliens terrorizing Minneapolis. Omar fired back, calling the statement full of lies and propaganda, insisting the people being grabbed off the streets were law-abiding citizens. DHS kept publishing mugshots. Omar's side kept publishing videos of detained citizens. But nobody could argue away the reality. The machine was real, over 4,000 arrests. And through it all, Omar kept letting one specific description of her community slip out, a line that would eventually sit next to a hidden number and quietly demolish her entire winter. She had no idea she was building the case against her own alarm. Everything funneled into that one Boston courtroom. But on June 25th, the ground underneath it crashed. That morning, the Supreme Court handed down a ruling in a consolidated case. It was a 6-3 decision that said something breathtaking. Federal courts essentially have no power to review a Homeland Security Secretary's decision to terminate a country's TPS designation. Any secretary, any country. Legal analysts noted that the ruling immediately put over 350,000 TPS holders at risk and closed the courthouse door on a framework covering 1.3 million people from 17 different countries. For the Somali plaintiffs in Boston, the ruling was catastrophic. Their entire case relied on a door the Supreme Court had just welded shut. In July, their lawyers begged the court to keep the freeze alive for final arguments. The judge extended the pause one more time. One thread left. On August 11th, Omar won her Democratic primary back home, beating 4 challengers. She had 3 days to enjoy it. Then, on Friday, August 14th, the order came down, and the wildest part is what is actually written inside it. The judge wrote, in black and white, that the plaintiffs made a convincing showing that they will suffer irreparable harm. Read that twice. The judge believed the harm was real. She acknowledged the families would be hurt, and she lifted the freeze anyway, writing that after the Supreme Court's decision, the plaintiffs had not demonstrated a likelihood of success on the merits. She was bound to view the case through the Supreme Court's new prism. A judge saying, in effect, "My hands are tied, and the tying was done above me." 4 months of rescue in March, erased in one Friday filing docketed while the rest of the country eased into its weekend. If you are picturing some mega loyalist in a black robe doing Donald Trump a personal favor, you are entirely wrong. The biology of the woman who signed that order is where this story turns on its head. The judge who lifted the freeze was Allison Burroughs. She was appointed by Barack Obama, and her recent record makes this ruling razor sharp. She is known as the Harvard Judge. When Trump moved to strip Harvard of its ability to enroll international students in 2025, Judge Burroughs blocked him. When the administration froze $2.6 billion of Harvard's research money, Burroughs ruled it illegal retaliation and ordered it restored, blasting the government's case as a cover for an ideologically motivated assault on elite universities. Conservative media spent a year painting her as the resistance in a robe. She was Donald Trump's single most painful courtroom obstacle. And yet, this judge looked at the Somali TPS case, applied the Supreme Court's ruling, and concluded that even she had no legal road left. When your best-case scenario judge tells you the fight is over, it is over. Understand what the ruling actually does. The Somalis covered by TPS came to America lawfully under a designation running since 1991. Losing that status means losing work permits and protection from removal. Anyone without another legal basis to stay becomes deportable. Noam's January order stated that conditions in Somalia had improved enough that the country no longer met the law's requirement, and that 35 years is the opposite of temporary. Minnesota State Representative Samakar Hussein called the ruling a devastating blow, which tells you exactly how much teeth it has. The machinery to act on it never really left. Operation Metro Surge officially ended on February 12th, but court filings afterwards still counted just under 1,000 federal agents remaining in the state. East African outlets are now reporting removal flights queuing up. Haiti, Syria, and now Somalia. The template is live. Courts have stepped aside. So, that is the war. A social media post, a massive ice surge, a legal freeze, a Supreme Court hammer, a friendly judge out of road. But now, put the number next to it. The one number that was sitting there the entire time. How many people do you think this fight was actually about? The Hill and local outlet KSTP put the number of Somali nationals actually holding temporary protected status at roughly 700. Other outlets say 1,100. The absolute highest figure anyone has published, sourced to USCIS, is 2,471. Take the biggest number. It still doesn't change the reality. Minnesota's Somali community alone runs from 87,000 by census count to 108,000 at the high end. It is the largest in America. Even if we take the absolute maximum number of 2,471 TPS holders, the share of the community touched by Friday's court order is under 3%. The Hill's number puts it at under 1%, fewer than 1 in 100. And the person best positioned to tell you that scale was Ilhan Omar, because she did exactly that in late November on a podcast. She said it herself. "We don't really have a lot of people who are undocumented." She explained that most Somalis came as refugees, got green cards, and became citizens. She was right. Her community is overwhelmingly legal, by her own words. Yet she spent the entire winter treating a program covering, at most, a couple of thousand people nationwide as an existential war on everyone who looks like her. She sent letters alleging a revenge operation. She fired off lies and propaganda broadsides at DHS. She told a story about her own son that the agency says it has no record of. Full. The alarm bell never came with the actual number attached. It only got louder. You now know the one figure the coverage kept leaving out, which puts you ahead of almost everyone who shouted about this story all year. The loudest 9 months in Minnesota politics ended in the quietest room in Boston. The most friendly, resistance judge the Democrats had wrote that these families will genuinely be hurt, but that the law no longer allows her to stop it. Ilhan Omar didn't lose this fight to Donald Trump's rhetoric. She lost it to the math she ignored and the law she couldn't bend. When a politician weaponizes the pain of less than 3% of their community to build a 100% political war, they aren't protecting their people. They are performing for a base. And the courts just pulled back the curtain on the illusion. We follow the facts the politicians hide. If you want the real story behind the headlines, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Stay vigilant.